This presentation was originally shared at the North American Bike and Scooter Share Association's annual conference in Guadalajara, Mexico on October 27, 2022, as part of a panel focusing on moving micromobility from pilot to permanent. Hello, my name is Carly. I'm a doctoral candidate at Royal Roads University, but I've also been working in the shared mobility space for a number of years. So when e-scooters started popping up in markets across North America in 2017, 2018, I began to hear things like, wow, that was so much fun, and I feel like a kid again. And this, at least in my experience, was not typical of how people would normally describe the experience of getting around. And when I wanted to find out why people were saying these things, what it was about e-scooters that make people feel this way, I made it the focus of my doctoral research. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. To start, here's a bit of background on the study itself. I looked at 5 micromobility markets across the Pacific Northwest, and the study had 3 main components to it. The first component was an electronic transit diary. You can get a sense of what this looked like for participants here on the phone. Users entered where they went, when, with who, how they felt. They entered every time they moved, regardless of mode type. It was just as important for me to understand when they chose to e-scooter as when they didn't. Next, I actually hopped on an e-scooter and rode alongside participants. I could observe their behavior, ask questions in the moment, and really try to understand why they did what they did. And this was followed by in-depth interviews to really get at the heart of statements like this. What exactly was exhilarating for this user? And what was it about e-scooters that made them feel this way? Before moving on, I do want to touch on more utilitarian factors such as cost, convenience, and availability, as these do tend to drive the shared mobility category, and these factors did arise in the study, but I'm not going to talk about them. The focus of the study and the insights coming out of this research is really on the perceptions, attitudes, and behaviors of users. I just wanted to take a quick moment to touch on these so you keep them in the back of your mind, as the utilitarian motivations do sit alongside the more effective insights I'm about to share. So, the first insight I want to talk about is really around trial. E-scooters are inherently social. Most users' first times were with others, typically small groups or pairs, but sometimes larger groups. You can see some of the images participants provided during the study in the corner here. So this pack riding dynamic has 2 unique features to it. First, it helped users to overcome uncertainty. Perhaps someone in the group knew how the scooters worked, or simply figuring something out new together made it less daunting. The other notable component of this social experience for e-scooters is that users unanimously reported their experience as fun. Fun in this context was sensory for users, so the wind in their hair. They reported a sense of freedom and a sense of discovery or rediscovery of their city. Users commented on how they could go where they wanted, when they wanted, but also in ways they wouldn't by car or by foot. So maybe taking a route they wouldn't typically take by car, or one that was a little bit further than they would travel on foot. And this led them to experience and view their city in a new way. Now, in the context of piloting micromobility programs, where it's important to have as many people as possible engage with the service, understanding what that entry point is for users can be incredibly powerful. We're already seeing operators incorporate features that enable a more social engagement with e-scooters. Things like the group ride functionality, real-time location sharing. This better enables friends to meet up given the dispersed and unpredictable nature of shared services. Gamification in-app, and even the injection of more personality into the on-vehicle prompts that interact with users. I suspect ongoing development and messaging around e-scooters will continue to privilege socially led engagements to support and incent trial among new users. So, the next thing I want to talk about is what I call, and what has been noted by other researchers, as this hybrid behavior or hybrid road use, where users oscillate between being in the pedestrian space and being a vehicle on the road. As I was observing participants, they were moving from road to sidewalk and back again more seamlessly and with a frequency that other road users didn't, such as cyclists. This behavior was primarily driven by tensions around safety. So users acknowledged that they were too fast for the sidewalks and really didn't want to ride there, but they also felt too slow for the road and didn't feel safe on parts of the street. But what was really interesting is that these concerns around safety were driven, at least in part, by the fact that existing norms and etiquette established around cycling and shared road use just don't work for e-scooter users. For example, the need to take a hand off the handlebar to signal in traffic was noted as being difficult, but this was especially dangerous if that hand was the one that operates the throttle and users experienced a rapid deceleration. So, e-scooter users, along with pedestrian and other road users, are still navigating what norms are or should be for e-scooters, and this is still being established. Ultimately, though, acknowledging that there are nuances in behavior among micromobility users and what's driving those nuances, especially when considering decisions around infrastructure, policies, and governance, just may better support the integration of all micromobility modes into transit systems. And last but not least, I wanted to touch on the impact of COVID-19. Operators had to pivot with the onset of the pandemic, no doubt about it. Early on, there were a lot of uncertainties around how fear of infection would impact rider behavior. And fear more generally was found to be part of a participant's experience, from safety concerns that were driving the hybrid use that we just touched on, or even this element of danger that was reported by some as actually intensifying or enhancing the experience. But when it comes to COVID-19 and perceptions of fear, users actually described a psychological safety related to e-scooters and their use. They noted things like being outdoors and the limited shared services, really being just the handlebars, that allowed them to see e-scooters as a safer alternative to other shared modes, particularly public transit and car share, where one user commented on the need to breathe the same inside the car air as other users. So, as ridership rebounds in this post-COVID context, there is this unique time period that we're in right now where concerns over infections are still lingering in the back of people's minds, and perceptions of psychological safety can be leveraged to position e-scooters as that safer alternative to help further entrench new mobility habits that have emerged over the pandemic. At the end of the day, it is clear that e-scooters offer users a unique experience that is contributing to trial and adoption across North America. With the category continuing to grow, especially in a post-pandemic landscape, it's incredibly important to keep emotional drivers and perceptions of consumers at the forefront of thinking, as these help shape not only what micromobility looks like for consumers, but what it feels like as it moves out of the periphery and into the core of our transit systems. Thank you.